Thanks for that introduction. Are you guys going to make it hard for me to present? I've noticed that everybody's kind of spread out all over the place on it. But I'll try to focus on a few of you as I talk. So as the presentation title is The New MIT, and my role is marketing and IT within the company. The reason we did that is that we were thinking of moving towards a solutions orientation. Marketing plays a key role in that, but more and more, across all types of companies, technology companies, service companies, IT actually serves as a foundation on the interaction with the customers, but also in the enablement of sales and marketing to be able to get our message out of it. Jim Stengel, he used to be the CMO of Procter & Gamble. He was one of our board members a few years back. And right after I got the IT role, he was in my office at the beginning of last year. And I was telling him what we were trying to accomplish with marketing and IT being together. And he left to the airport, and about 45 minutes later, I get a text from him saying, I love the role, go MIT. And I just stuck with it. And then we ended up using that as our internal title for both marketing and IT. So I'll tell you a little bit about the company. Motorola Solutions, we're about a $9 billion company. We have 22,000 employees around the world. The customers that we serve are public safety customers, so you think about police, fire, any of the first responders that are in our cities, they're our customers. So if you look at the technology that they're wearing in their body, when you go into a police cars, as you open them up and you see in the trunk, you'll see computers, video equipment, modems, radios. More and more, there's more technology in the car than car itself. So we're a big provider of that. And then as you go back into the 911 centers and the command centers, we're also there. We're seeing a trend in the public safety space that they're managing the city beyond just using telecommunication equipment or voice, mission-critical voice products. As we talk about trend in terms of social media and video on the consumer and marketing space, what we're finding out in many cities that the way that the citizens communicate back, they're using the same tools. They're not picking up the phones anymore. They're SMSing, they're getting on Twitter, and then so the police forces are having to consume that type of information, process it, and then push it out to the first responders out on the street. So we work on a lot of the solutions that address those needs. And then on the enterprise space, you think about us as serving the complete supply chain. So retail's our biggest segment, but we go retail, warehouse, distribution, and then the factories. And most of our products are mobility products on that end. So if you're in the retail store, it'll be the mobile computer or the scanner that they use to process your purchase. If you go into Amazon warehouse, how they're processing your orders, they'll use one of our mobile computers, wearables, in the arms of the warehouse workers. And as that order gets shipped to you, usually when UPS or FedEx deliver a package and you sign on a mobile computer, more than likely it'll be one of our equipments. One of the things that we saw 3 years ago, we decided to split Motorola Inc. into two companies. So we were a $40 billion company that had a big consumer segment and a big B2B segment. And then so with the board and the management team, we decided that we wanted to focus more on pure plays. So we went through a couple of years of work and spun off the consumer business, which was Motorola Mobility, which 6 months after we spun it off, Google bought it. And then a few months back, Lenovo just announced that they bought that business. Motorola Solutions is the purely 100% B2B company that was left over. And as we looked at trends in the market with our customers, we noticed that there was a need to solve much more complex problems across the board, not just in the public safety space, but also in terms of the retail segment, on the T&L. So most of our enterprise customers are looking either to maximize revenue or save costs. On the public safety space, there was this duality of reducing crime, saving lives, but also improving the economic well-beings of the city. And as we analyze our portfolio, the customer needs, and our go-to-market approach, one of the things that we saw is that we actually had to move away from a product-centric approach in terms of creating solutions, in terms of the way that we sold, and in the way that we communicated. So for the last 3 years, we have embarked on this journey of starting with the company name, Motorola. We went from Motorola Inc. to Motorola Solutions on this customer-centric approach on how we address our customer problems. How do we create solutions based on that? And then ultimately, how do we change the way that we sell? So what I'm going to talk about is the way that we're changing our selling approach to be more of a solutions-oriented company. Has a huge impact on marketing, and it has a huge impact on IT. I think a couple of the earlier presenters talked about content, and they talked about social, and some of the underlying technology to deliver it. As you look at moving from a product-centric company to moving to more of a solution company, you're going to notice that content plays a big role in the way that you communicate to your customers. But a huge component of content is also what you provide to your sales teams and your channel partners to do sales enablement and conversations with the customer. And the message might be the same. The approach is very, very different. So when we talk about 1.0 to 3.0, is we look at our 1,800 salespeople and 20,000 channel partners, and we categorize them. They're either at 1.0 where we're moving products to like a 3.0 stage where we're doing more of a consultative sale. Or I wouldn't call it consultative sale. We're more looking at what their problems are and then backing into a set of solutions that we can provide them. So I'll take you through the journey. So if you go back probably a couple of years ago, and we started looking at where we were at in the process. So we had retooled our product teams and our CTO to start with the customer and move back. We had analyzed our sales teams to say, what are some of the behaviors and tools that sales needs to have in order to evolve those 1,800 salespeople to be more of a consultative selling approach. I had taken also the marketing teams and started looking at the messaging and the structure that marketing should have to be able to move along that solution journey. The one area that we had not touched was IT. And if you think about the CIO and the role that IT plays in many companies, about a third of the CIOs report into the CEO. 2/3 report into other functions in the companies. And the two areas that is most common is either the CFO or the COO, the head of operations of a company. Depending where you place IT, it will depend on the strategic impact that IT has in the company. So if you put IT in the CFO, it'll be treated as a cost center. So most of the focus will be on reducing the budget. If you put IT into the COO or the areas of operation, most of the focus is going to be sitting in the back office. So you're thinking about factories, distribution centers, and the complete supply chain that we have. And that's the way that we had IT set up in Motorola. For many years, it reported to the CEO. Maybe 6 years ago, it went into operations. And then a lot of our investment went into the back office, which is what we call the systems of record. And IT in Motorola is actually the second largest budget within the company. So we spend $1 billion in R&D. We spend $350 million in IT, enabling a lot of our processes. When we looked at IT and started evaluating the role that it would play within the company, we wanted to be much more customer-centric, focus on enabling our customers, our salespeople, and our employees to be more solutions-oriented. So when we said, where should IT report to shift the focus from the back office to the front office, the two executive committee members or direct reports to the CEO that had the most customer-facing experience was head of sales or head of marketing. And I already had IT responsibilities for the last 5 years for the marketing systems. So we ended up lining up IT within the marketing organization for us to be able to transform it more as an enabler in that journey towards solution selling, but also started shifting our focus from traditional back office operations to be much more customer-centric, start with the user first and design our systems going back, focus on how we structure our data to allow for better analytics and better customer knowledge so that as we move out to our customer, we can do better targeting. But also as we look at architecting all the software that we would implement, instead of doing software deployments, you start with the customer and then kind of back in and architect the front office and back office based on who we talk to, who our customers are. So that's why the duality of my role on IT and marketing. So when we go back and I just take you through the journey on where we started 3 years ago, one of the first things that we did as we thought about separating the company and started looking at what the brand stood for in Motorola. So we're an 86-year-old company. The brand has had multiple iterations, but it always had a set of values that it stood for the company. So many of my peers said, hey, you know what, we need a new vision or a new mission statement for the company to kind of get us moving forward as Motorola Solutions. And as I worked with my team and the executive committee members, we said, you know, a mission and a vision statement is not enough to kind of get the employees motivated and also create that link with their customers. So we ended up creating a brand framework that has 4 key components. One of them is purpose. So this is the why we exist. And it doesn't necessarily center around products or technology that we serve, but it centers around the customer. So the purpose statement that we came up with, and it's based through research, talking to our customers, and just looking at the history of the company, and where we wanted to go, is we help people be their best in the moments that matter. And it's very, very, very centered around Motorola, but it's centered around our customers, the public safety customers or the retail or supply chain customers. The external piece of the purpose is our brand promise. So that's the what, how we communicate it out. So it centers around innovating to mobilize and connect people in the moments that matter. Moments that matter is that link. It's that one thing that's important to our customers. And on the promise, it has 3 key words: innovation, mobility, and connectivity. So innovation within a technology company, that's something that we pride ourselves on doing or solving customer problems, and always center around mobility, which is the differential that we offer. And then you have the brand voice, which is how we communicate. But the piece that was interesting is actually the marketing teams and HR teams working together on the brand values, and not necessarily what the brand stands for, but how you live the values inside the company. And through research with our employees, looking at the historic values of the company and the aspirational values that we wanted to have, we came up with a set of values that then got turned into our leadership model for employees. And when we rolled that out, the first team that got evaluated on the leadership model was actually the board evaluated us and the executive committee on not only on our performance, but how we lived the leadership model versus the value. And then we rolled it out for the rest of the company. So that's the first thing that we did, is focus on the purpose, having a clarity in terms of what the company stands for. And the key thing in this area was that the purpose doesn't talk about our products. The purpose centers on the value that we provide to our customers, which, as we were thinking about it, I thought, how are 8,000 engineers in the company going to react to having a purpose that doesn't necessarily show a product? And once we got it out, it kind of got away from us just being a marketing push, and it became a sales, engineering, or development teams rally behind the purpose because they could see the impact that we would have on customers. As you back in from the purpose, you could actually articulate a solution and ultimately a product. But this helped us kind of set us in the way on the solution focus, having a clear path and view on what we stood for as a company. So after we looked at the purpose, we said within the marketing organization, how do we evolve the skill sets and what marketing delivers along with product and sales on this evolution towards solution selling? So the first thing that we looked at with my team is we started looking at just at the most basic thing, the 4 Ps. So every year with my team, we started at the beginning of the year, started looking at, okay, what did we accomplish last year, but more importantly, what trends do we see out in the market? What do we see our customers doing? How do we see the marketing profession evolving? What are other companies doing? And then we come back with a set of white papers that reflect on the plans that marketing was going to put forth, matching the company strategy, but also defining the evolution of marketing around people, processes, and tools that we put in. So people, how we structure the teams, but also the skill sets that we would bring in and enhance. Process, how do we link up with the rest of the organizations in the company? And then tools, it mostly relates to IT implementation. So a lot of the tools that marketing puts in place actually have a starting point or end point with other tools that either sales, service, or engineering use. So you heard Eloqua talk about it a little bit earlier. They're one of our tools, but Eloqua actually got integrated with Salesforce.com. They got integrated with our collaboration platform. So when we look at tools, we look at those end-to-end enablement on that. So when we started looking at the 4 Ps, one of my team members said, hey, they were created in the 60s, and they were created by consumer marketers, and they don't necessarily apply to what we do as a technology company and what we want to accomplish as B2B marketers in this space. So for each of the Ps, we came up with a counterbalance that we call the SAFE model. So if you notice at the bottom, it's centered around the purpose. So the purpose is the foundation of the evolution of the 4 Ps for us. And for each of them, we said if we're product marketers. So my team is probably around 250 people around the world. And I have product marketers that start with the CTO. They're embedded in all the business units. And then I have all the field marketers around the world. So they're either working on the sales teams or the channel partners. And the ones that faced off to the business units, we call them product marketing teams. And we said, you know what, if we continue to be structured around products, we're going to be very good at doing product launches, writing spec sheets, and we'll get on this wheel that every time we do a product launch, we engage and disengage and engage and disengage. But if truly we were going to push towards being a solutions company, the product marketing team had to be more of a solution focus, and the product marketers had to be evolved to be more of a vertical marketing team. So they're highly technical, but at the same time, they have this depth of knowledge around the verticals that we serve. So any solutions marketer would have to know public safety inside out, or customers, and then tie that back to our portfolio. And the marketers are at a unique intersection because they look at all the business units that we have, that we put out hundreds of products per year, but they're the ones that weave that narrative based on the customer need, and then pull the portfolio together as a solution that serves the customers, either opportunity or problem that they're trying to solve, and not necessarily just the speeds and feeds that the product enables. Then when we talked about place, and we looked at how our customers were consuming information, it actually started looking more like access. So when we looked at how we distributed information and distributed content, we would have to think not just the point that they were facing off to one of our channel partners or direct sales teams, not just the .com site, the social component of that, and then the rest of the digital tools that we would have to be able to deliver that. So looking at a broader essence on the marketing mix, and then the content that gets developed for that. Price, value, and that one ties into the solution focus. So if you're going to start with the customer and start thinking on how you address their needs, the conversation should quickly turn on what the value is, not necessarily the price that we're selling. And the value will vary by customer. And the articulation of that value by our sales team is critical. So it's a mindset shift. And the last one is promotional education. So if you're on a product launch hamster wheel, you're constantly running promotion. But if you talk to the customers, they expect more of a thought leadership, and they expect to learn something new from us. They want us to give them like an aha moment, something that ties into trends that we see in the market, ties into their challenges, and then for us, how does technology intersect that? So we had to change the mindset of the marketers to start thinking more long-term communication with the customers. That is a conversation that's just ongoing. And at some point in time, it intersects with the buying cycle that the customer has. But not necessarily driving all marketing communications towards that buying versus the customer learning way ahead of time. So that reshifted the way that I organized my team. The product marketers changed to vertical and solutions marketing team. We ended up putting a team that was content operations that actually looked at the whole journey, the customer journey, on what type of content will we deliver via what type of channel, and then ultimately flip that and look at content that's focused on sales enablement, not just customer facing. And then so the easiest way to look at this is just through the funnel. So I have a unique role in the company. So I report to the CEO and I sit in the executive committee. But on my day-to-day job, I sit on the staff of our head of sales and products. So it allows me to tie the company strategy to just the operational aspect on how we run the company. And many marketing teams just focus on the top of the funnel, just on the thought leadership and demand generation. And when it gets to a marketing qualified lead, we hand off to the sales teams. And what we wanted to do in marketing is actually, it's a continuum. We would work on the thought leadership and the education and that engagement with our customers. At some point, when the customers are ready to buy, and get involved in the demand generation, but not necessarily hand off when sales takes the customer engagement. Marketing also continues on the sales enablement. And then the loop goes back. And then so the marketing teams have end-to-end processes with sales, but our systems actually match the way that we talk to customers, but then also the way that we sell to them. This actually created a mind shift and an organizational shift on the type of content that we create and the way that we tie the systems across the board in the company. So when we do messaging, I'll give you the public safety example. So instead of starting from our portfolio, we started with our customers. So if you think on who our customers are in the public safety, so it's elected officials, the police commander, the police officer that's out on the street, and in many cases, the citizens of the city. So when we look at a messaging platform, we start with a broad message that ties to customer needs, usually dissect that into 3 pillars that talks to each of the constituents. And then those 3 pillars allows us then to break our portfolio into solutions that address their needs. So I'll walk you through an example of public safety. So when you think about the biggest challenges of our cities, they're one, safer cities that lead to thriving communities, and they go hand in hand. So a lot of the solutions that we have for cities actually have an impact on crime reduction, on the way that they run the city, that ultimately turns into a thriving community and an economic engine for that. So how do we message that within the platforms that we have? So that was the big idea for government business. Within the government business, we had 3 strategic pillars. So as I mentioned, we talked to the police chiefs, fire chiefs, and the officers, and they want to be able to save lives, but also maximize the safety of the officer. So how do we use data and information to allow them to proceed with intelligence into any situation that they're in? The scariest moment for a police officer in any point in their day is a traffic stop. They're usually by themselves. They approach a car and they don't know who's behind the wheel. So how do we use technology to act as a force multiplier for them? So there's a whole set of solutions with that. When we talk about managing the complexity, it's actually talking to the CIO in the city. So you got more and more technology being deployed. The budgets in the cities are tight. So how do we set up our systems or the business models that we have to be able to minimize the complexity of deploying it and managing on a day-to-day basis? And then the last piece is connecting with the city. So this is the part where we allow the citizens and the communities to be able to connect across any medium with the public safety agencies. So it goes all the way from the citizens to who manages the networks, and the first responders they're out there with the ultimate goal of creating the safer communities. Under each pillar, what we end up doing is there's a set of solutions that we have in the portfolio that address the specific needs of what they're trying to solve. And then under that portfolio, there's ultimately a set of products. The tough part of tying it all together is that there's communication and content that's going to go to each of the personas, each of the customer types. But there's also a whole set of tools and assets that you have to create for the sales teams. So I'll run a video and show you how we do it.
At the end of 2011, Motorola Solutions had a huge opportunity to grow by selling solutions and services that extend beyond their public safety core. Making that shift meant convincing a new and skeptical audience that Motorola is more than a device manufacturer. They're a partner ready to help government leaders cost-effectively solve their most complex technology problems. To do it, we needed to push beyond the traditional first responder story by promising a benefit more encompassing and more aspirational than safety and efficiency. We asked, what's the true benefit of solutions that connect every element affecting public safety? Our answer? Responders that feel confident they can do their job, citizens that feel safe and secure, and overall economic progress and prosperity. By connecting safety with prosperity, we defined government leaders' most compelling purpose and positioned Motorola's well-established strength as key to solving their greatest challenges. With solutions that turn noise into information, information into intelligence, and intelligence into safety, they can do the absolute most with less, build safer cities and thriving communities. To tell this story, we created a more optimistic look and feel for Motorola's communications. Instead of focusing on emergency situations, we emphasized everyday moments where better coordination leads to safer, thriving cities. On the web, we created a new landing page for public safety solutions with content that speaks to government leaders and their influencers. We reshaped the marketing story from products to end-to-end solutions and created new videos and case studies of real customers speaking about the importance of the safer cities, thriving communities vision. We integrated real-time social media from the public safety community to make it easy to share the most interesting content, and supported the customer nurture stream with a variety of new email templates. And we launched the whole campaign at APCO International, the industry's largest and most influential trade show. Together, this work helped sales teams elevate their dialogue from products to solutions. It changed the way that everyone, from analysts and investors to competitors and partners, saw the organization. And it laid out a clear vision for the future of public safety networks and devices, by reminding government leaders that solving their greatest challenges won't take winning the arms race, it'll take winning the communications race.
So one of the things that we found out that the easy part is actually creating the marketing message and articulating the solution focus around customers. It's not so hard in terms of structuring the marketing teams and changing the processes and putting the systems in place. The hardest part is actually changing the sales approach, changing the mindset of a team that's used to selling product to actually backing away from the product and saying, all right, I'm not going to talk about the two-way radio that we sell and what's the latest set of features, but start turning the dialogue more towards the customer problem. And from the customer problem, how do we address it? And at a high level, feel comfortable on architecting a technology or a solution that addresses their needs. So in partnership with sales, we started looking at our sales process. What are the stages that sales uses to engage with the customers? And then backed up and said, all right, how can marketing help on the way that we help them articulate the story, but also with the set of tools that enables them to be much more efficient and effective at what they do. So part of that was looking at a knowledge management system for sales. So if you look at our architecture in terms of the sales systems, we use Salesforce as our CRM. That allows us to track where they are on the sales stage, so it automates the sales stage. We have this site right here, which is our knowledge management and content management system for sales. So depending on what stage you're on, we trigger content up to the sales teams. And it's one place that's either process-driven, where we can feed content, or they can come in and look by vertical or type of engagement, sales-specific content. We also tied our collaboration platform. So Jive's going to be on a little bit later, where our knowledge management system allows for structured content to be fed, or collaboration platform allow for unstructured dialogue and knowledge to be shared. And we tied that together with Salesforce. And then the last thing that we did is we took our marketing automation system and tied that to Salesforce also, so that sales could create, well, we created on the marketing side the content, but they could activate sales-initiated nurture streams on top of the customer, so that they can continue the conversation and education over time, even thought if they were not experts on that. So we looked at the process, we looked at the systems, and tied all this together into an architecture. Now, we also had to change the way that we told the story in terms of content. So one of the things, this is one of the landing pages within the knowledge management system. A sales team goes in and he has a new type of engagement. Instead of giving the sales team a presentation that's canned, that it looks like somebody else created it and then they delivered it, we actually flipped the presentation and we started taking this whiteboard approach, which allows more of a conversation with the customer. What are you trying to solve? What is the issue that they have? And based on each of those issues, we provided facts based on research, an ability for them to get up on whiteboard. Same content as the presentation, but more of a two-way conversation and engagement, and allows the sales team to adapt based on the situation that they're in. It's a different way of selling, so if you think about it, we might push a white paper out to a customer. We might push a whiteboard presentation to our sales team that tells the story on the white paper. The other tool that we put in there is tied to the marketing automation system. We allow the ability to just pre-populated templates on email for them to shoot out. The thing that helps us is the templates cookie the customers. We're able to track what they do on our sites, and then we provide those insights to our sales team so that they know what they downloaded for the next visit. The other thing that we ended up doing is, I'm not saying the sales teams are lazy, they just don't like to read white papers. Not long white papers, right? So right before a meeting, you give them a 20-page white paper and expect them to read it, they're not. So we give them battle cards for engagements with the customer on the new type of solutions. These are one-pagers, front and back, short and sweet. We talk about the trends that they're seeing, what are some of the talking points that we've seen in other engagements, so that they feel much more prepared as they whiteboard the dialogue with the customer. The other thing that we looked at was solutions briefs. So same thing, right? Traditionally, you give the sales team 10-page white paper on the solution, bunch of technical diagrams, the engineers love them, but not necessarily how we sell. So as we were talking about solutions that we offer for the sales teams, it's the same way. Starts with the customer problems. What trends do we see? How does the solution fit in there? And it allows us to have a good initial conversation with them. Ultimately, when we look at the sales process, the tools and the content, the way that we tied it is, we have a clear view of the process. It's automated through Salesforce. There's a structured knowledge management and content management system that feeds it. And then we create a whole new set of content. When we're doing a solution launch, we do the traditional ones that are customer-facing, but there's a complementary set of content that is sales-facing that allows them to engage in a different way. Big benefit on that, it allows us to have end-to-end opportunity management or teams to collaborate much better. And it allows also for a tracking mechanism for the marketing teams to go in and see what's working and not working. So remember when I talked about IT being much more user-centric? That not only applies to the customer, but it applies to the seller as an end customer for IT. So as we backed up and said, how do our sales teams engage? What's the process that they use to sell? Then we back up one more time and we say, okay, how do we architect the systems on the back end to enable better conversations and better engagements with the customer? The other thing that the systems have, and we talk about analytics a lot in terms of customer analytics, it gave us analytics back on what's being used and not used. So a lot of times, people say, hey, there's a lot of content that you create, you're not sure what's getting traction or not. We can actually track to the item and to the salesperson on what's being downloaded so that we can see what content is working, what's not working. At the end of the day, the toughest thing about content operations is the demand for content is going to increase exponentially. So as you create new content and new types of formats, you got to go kill some stuff. This allows us to go in and do both. What's working, we'll do more. What's not working, we'll start killing. It also has this TripAdvisor-like user rating on the system, which allows the sellers to say, hey, you know what, sucks, works, you should tweak this. The marketers, initially, they hated it, and the sales guys didn't want to use it. So we had to do a little bit of change management, say, hey, marketers, it's just, it'll make us better as we get feedback, and then the sales teams use it because you're going to get better output from the marketing teams. So we continue to track it. When you look at adoption, right now, after 14 months, we're sitting at around 53% of adoption. We want to get to 100%, but one of the things that we've noticed is the sales teams that are using it are the ones that are more solution-centric. The ones that are selling product see not that much value of that. So as you move towards more of a solution-centric approach, we see increase go up. When we see sales teams go in and look for content in our content management system, when they navigate for solutions within a vertical. When they search, so when they use the search button, they search for products. They're searching for something specific. So we're tracking behaviors also just to see who's doing what, so that then we can adapt the way that we generate content and also how we set up the systems ultimately. So at the end of the day, when you look at solution selling, there's a bunch of challenges. It's a culture change on the company. It's a culture change for the engineers on how they start with the customers and back into a technology. It's a battle with the sales teams to move from the comfort level of selling products. And it's the worst thing, if you're successful at it and you're number one in your markets, why change? So how do you break the status quo to move into a solution sale? And it's a change of approach for the marketing and IT teams, where the content that we create in marketing has to change to enable the sales teams to have better conversations. And as we back up from the IT front, the way that we architect the systems for sales enablement and the way that we architect the systems to be able to talk to our customers change. We're not just implementing software packages, we're actually architecting the way that the process works in the customer conversations. So at a high level, that's our story on when we look at sales enablement and we talk about solution selling, it has huge impacts on the marketing organization, not just on the skill sets, but on the process that we use, on how we tie the systems end to end with sales, and then the collaboration with sales on changing the way that we sell to a customer. Thank you. Sure, so the question was, how did the conversation go with the sales teams and upper management on this shift? Luckily, on this process, the head of sales and myself, we were locked hand in hands on the approach and what we wanted to accomplish. But there were some interesting conversations. So the 54%, right? The initial feedback was from the sales guys was, the content sucks. You guys didn't tag it right. It's not popping. And then so luckily, this thing has analytics, right? So I got part of my team just goes in and looks at it all the time, tracking and see what's working. So some of the content had to be adjusted and retagged a small percentage. Part of it was just the approach that the sales guys were taking on shifting from being product to solution sellers, right? And then we started seeing who was using it and then have a correlation on how they were selling out into the market. The one thing that was interesting is that we have the structured content and then the unstructured collaboration. So this thing is at 54%, or unstructured collaboration is going through the roofs right now. On that one, we're getting 85% traction within the whole company, and we just launched it a few months back. You got to almost tie those two things together, where if a sales team has a question, a lot of times they're finding the unstructured collaboration to be a quicker way to get an answer. But it's not a good way to deliver structured content. So we ended up having to tie both of those things together. So I think when you look at deploying a change in process, hand-in-hand collaboration with marketing, you got to be looking at the numbers to make sure you're addressing the right problem once it gets brought up.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Can you maybe speak to how you are internally closing the loop and showing contribution to revenue from your marketing messaging and your sales enablement tools? Maybe how those two work together and how you're able to prove, or what metrics you use to determine what mix of those two areas are having the most impact?
Perfect. So that's a great question. That's something that we worked for about a year, and part of it was process change, and part of it was systems integration. So, or call centers, Salesforce.com, and the local, our marketing automation systems. We tied all those things together, so that when somebody comes in through any outbound campaign or inbound campaign, we can see the source where it came in from a marketing initiated. Or call centers usually do all the routings or their web forms. So when I showed you the funnel, we have pretty good visibility on top of the funnel on what is the source, how fast we make it through each of the stages. By tying the CRM and the PRM system, so we use Salesforce for both channel and sales. When we hand off a marketing-initiated contact or lead, we track it through Salesforce. So as they work it to the bottom of the funnel. And then we can also track when they close it. And that's it's hard to implement. Once you get the process right, it's easy to kind of see what revenue impact marketing has. The ones that gets tougher is the influence component. So there's some that you can't track because they didn't call us, but marketing touched them in the process. When we were talking about education, as we touched them, and our sales teams might close it. Now we're trying to figure out, we have some analysts and mathematicians in the marketing team. They're working on models to see how we can do an attribution to influence number. The sales guys don't like that number though, because is any salespeople here? I don't want to insult anybody. But the marketers say, hey, you know what, the sales team wants to go out and kill the game, right? I killed it. This is my deer or my pig that I got. But marketing kind of helped rope it in, right? And how do we say, hey, you know, we actually had a 40% influence on that deal versus you had 60? That part is something that we're still kind of working through. I don't think we got it 100% right yet.